All right, welcome to another Ember Weekend. I am Jonathan Jackson.
And I'm Chase McCarthy.
And we are here to talk about some newsy things. Well, actually, this week, not so many newsy things, right?
More just pain and headache and fast boot and and fun times and no debugging.
So we're going to talk a little bit about some cool things, and I am excited. We are broadcasting here in Jacksonville. I think this might be the last time we're going to be co-located here in the Hash Rocket office. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I'm going to probably end up start recording remotely next week.
Man.
Yeah, the missed view.
Yeah, definitely. So anyways, let's get to the show, talk about all the cool stuff, and we'll go from there.
All right, so the first thing is some work that John did last week on kind of fixing our fast boot. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, Ember Weekend is running fast boot on Heroku. The only issue is that there are some double requests and things happening where the backend serves the page like fastboot is supposed to, but then doesn't, kind of the front end isn't aware of the fact that it already has that data, so it goes out and fetches it again. And there's kind of a little bit of a pop on the page.
Yeah, and it's not just that, actually. We have, that's definitely, like, obviously the main thing, but there's some optimizations that we didn't take, like the episodes index, where you're doing a request for that on the production site, which gets all of the episodes, just so we can pop the last one off to tell the player what to play on the bottom. And there's a few things like that I also fixed. But in that particular instance, when you go to the show page, you're actually making 4 XHR requests for information to render that page instead of 1, which is all we really require. So there's a lot of work to be done. I've known about this for a long time. I actually talked to Miguel Madera at Wicked Good Ember about all this. I think he was working on Fastboot at the time, and there was a lot of things that I knew I wanted to do, but I just hadn't had time to allocate to it. And we were already on the LTS, and everything was stable. And it's like, okay, well, let's not mess with it until I have time to actually devote to it.
So what were the 4 requests that were happening?
So Node would make a request for the episodes to know how to display the player, and then it would also make a request to get the actual episode itself. And then it's going to send that to the browser, and then the browser is going to paint that. And then once Ember loads, it's going to trigger a loading state. It triggers a spinner, which actually was in the wrong location, really, unfortunately. It would show a spinner, and then once the spinner was loading, it would actually go and run the model hook, which runs the episode request again to show what the data the player needed, and then again to get the actual episode details. So four total XHR requests, and that's not including all of the interop between the actual browser making asset requests. So it was kind of like a lot. Like, we got that down on the staging branch. I got that down to just 1 request for the episode show, which means it's considerably faster, and it's pretty neat.
Yeah, because the reason behind that is that we were kind of doing something weird in that when you loaded the show page of the episode, you were seeing the most recent page. But if you go to the show page, you probably want to see the player already showing the episode you're looking at.
Yeah, exactly. And then, I mean, it actually kind of interesting. So like on the about page and which just shows some bioinformation of you and I, and the blog post pages. Both of those need to actually make that request to episodes, because we really probably just need to add on the back end a most recent call, so we can say, hey, go give me the most recent episode, and like that would be really nice, and that would cut out a lot of this extra chatter. But
yeah, definitely, that's kind of a weird one, because we already know we already have some kind of like to-do lists of like things to do, like implement filter and stuff. Right. But the most recent one, that's kind of a, there's nothing really there's no way I can think of that like JSON API would, facilitate that. That's just going to be like a one-off like query param. Yeah, I think maybe we could do something like give them to me sorted by date, which they already are in anyway, and just say limit it to 1. And that would give you the most recent.
Yeah, nice. You're problem solving on air, man. I like it.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. So basically, let's talk about some of the stuff that I had to do it. First off, I had to upgrade Ember to 2.8 from 2.4, which was really, really simple. And then I pushed to 2.9 when I realized that 2.9 didn't include Glimmer, so there was really no reason not to go all the way to 2.9. I will be pulling Glimmer in next. That is my goal, to push onto the 2.10 beta branch for Glimmer. but I wanted to take one step at a time so I didn't get bogged down in how things are going to work. But yeah, so we're going to use the show page to talk about, which is the one that had the 4 requests, and 2 of which we could totally remove, and 1 of which we removed by just using, like, modifying kind of like the actual user experience. What we ended up using is Fastboot facilitates this by using something called Shoebox. And I've subsequently found out that there is a much easier and simpler way for us to do this, but I did it kind of using the primitives around Shoebox, kind of like what their README shows, where I actually used the models, the routes model hooks to interact with the Shoebox and serialize and deserialize all the information I need. So let's give a 10,000 foot view of what Shoebox is. Fastboot runs in Node, and it has your entire application booted and running so that it can actually render the string directly to the browser, like your actual completed HTML. This is great for things like SEO. It does a lot of really cool things. During that process, it has to do XHR requests and stuff like that. When it does XHR requests and you do this on the back end, there's no way to communicate it forward. So Fastboot facilitates that by giving you a shoebox, which allows you to write data in script tags, JSON data that you serialize to the DOM. And then once your browser actually snaps in and JavaScript starts taking over, you can read from the DOM. So it's kind of like a way to, like, you know, what is it, bootstrap your application, I think. Probably where they got the term shoebox, if I was just guessing.
Right, yeah, Fastboot,
I didn't even think
bootstrapping, shoebox. Yeah, it all has to do with boots, I guess.
All boots, all boots all the way down. Anyways, so what we had to do was so there's like 3 different states that you can kind of get into that we know of. So one is the obvious, the user requests something and we're in Node land. So we're in Node, we don't have access to certain things, but we have most of the stuff we need. And this is all for the model hook. So the Node land has to do the actual request to the actual backend. So that didn't have to change a whole lot. It was basically like query record with a filter. So we're in Fastboot land in Node, and we make the request. And then once that request resolves, we use a promise chain. Once that request resolves, we use Shoebox and we serialize the episode. And I'll talk about some of the problems I have with serialization. Don't let me forget that, Chase. That was a kind of a pain.
Yeah.
And we serialize that to Shoebox, and then we're done. Then we make sure we return the episode at the very end, and it just works. So now we have all that information in the page. So the page continues on. We've returned to the episode, so everything renders, and you get the Fastboot screen with the fully rendered HTML already there. And then JavaScript takes over after, an indeterminate amount of time, however long it takes to download everything. And then there's a snap where everything's substituted for the original or for the JavaScript content. So it basically re-renders everything. It does a re-render, and then the model hooks are fired again. So this time, since we're in the model hook again, but we're in the browser, this is the second state. Now we're in the browser and we want to read from Shoebox. So I deserialized everything from Shoebox, and I pushed it into Ember data, and then I just synchronously return a peak record because I know for a fact at this point that Shoebox correctly gave me all the information I need. So there's no reason for me to go looking for other things. But there's one third state that happens later. This third state is what happens when the record gets stale, and this doesn't happen very often for us, or if we go away and then we come back, or if we start on the episode index. There's a few different ways you can get this and trigger this state, but it's basically the second time you try to hit that model hook, you don't want to do the shoebox again. You want to do a new request, and that's basically like old behavior. So the default behavior is to go and query a record in this third state when you are not the first time of referencing the shoebox. You want to fetch a new model.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. So that took me quite a while to kind of wrap my head around just knowing when things happen. And the failure states are always in very strange places where you click away and you click over here and you click back and you're like, wait a second, why do I only have one episode on the index? Well, it's because when you go back and the store is defined, it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to return the episode, but I came in from the show, so it doesn't have all the episodes. It only has one. So there's a lot of edge cases that you have to kind of keep in mind when you're working with this, and that is when I went into the Fastboot channel and I was like, hey, how do I do all this stuff? And this seems really kind of crazy. Like I'm having to write a lot of really ugly code to make this work the way I want it to. And of course, Robert comes in and says, "Hey, have you checked out Ember Data Fastboot?" Which is it's just a much better abstraction. So that's where we were at this morning. Chase and I started working on incorporating that.
Yeah. So Ember Fastboot does. Oh, what do you call it now? So Ember Data Fastboot.
Yeah, we've been making that mistake all morning.
I keep calling it Ember Data Fastboot Shoebox or Ember Shoebox
yeah,
Fastboot.
yeah. You want Shoebox in the name, but it's not there.
Yeah, it's not there. So Ember Data Fastboot. What it does is it kind of assumes some things about your app. One, that you're using Ember Data, also assumes that you're using JSON API, and that the thing that's going to be in Shoebox is a JSON API structure that can shove into the JSON API adapter. So with all those assumptions, it should just kind of work out of the box. It does still do requests, though, we found, and that's mostly because of the way we're doing our query record. We kind of overrode it to use slugs instead of using filter on the back end. So we're kind of have to work on that to remove that query. But other than that, it's a much higher level abstraction. It eliminates all the need to kind of behave differently in each one of your routes, or have to know what route maybe you started in and that you have some data for the show route, but you don't have the data for the index. It's kind of a set it and forget it. You read from Shoebox once, throw in Ember Data and be done with it. There's a little bit more complication in the fact that Ember Data, when you do a find all, will return everything it has, and then that's a live array. It also then go do a query, and when that gets resolved, it will update whatever got rendered if there's new content. And we know when we get it back from Shoebox that it just got loaded a second ago. So there's no need to do this. But right now, using this technique, there's no real way to prevent that. And there's a couple different strategies that are being talked about of how to prevent that.
Yeah, and that's an issue that we're talking about. There's a proposal that Edward Faulkner put in an issue on Ember CLI Fastboot that basically will promisify the interaction between Shoebox, so you can ostensibly memoize things, which will make the way that they're doing it in Ember Data Fastboot, which is the Shoebox add-on, and it'll make that a lot easier. And there's also discussion around how you would think that once you retrieve something, it might delete that from the Shoebox store, or you might be able to delete it yourself from a Shoebox store. But there's some things. Chase and I are still trying to wrestle with how we think, basically our feelings on that issue. I think we kind of differ a little bit, but I really like this abstraction a lot better. Just like everything that's in the store, just put that into Shoebox, and then there's actually two instance initializers, one that happens in the browser and one that happens in Fastboot, which is really, really cool that that's possible. And it just serializes and deserializes everything for you, and assuming everything's right, it just works. And I think Shoebox is the right primitive, so I'm excited to see how it shakes out. I did notice that, and I posted some of this to my personal Twitter account, not the Ember Weekend account, some of the performance increases. But when I did this, I was able to shave off on average at least 1.5 seconds to the load, and the time to first load was considerably faster. So I've been pleasantly surprised with all that. There's a lot of really good optimizations that can be made here.
Yeah, one of the things we also realized as we were kind of debugging this is that something to do with Heroku running Elixir on the front, on a development machine, Elixir responds in 17 milliseconds, but on Heroku it takes 400 milliseconds, and so we're gonna have to figure out a way to get that. I mean, that's actually a big chunk now of the size of the fetch.
Yeah, I would say that in my limited debugging that I've done so far, because I did this right before we went to that conference. In my limited experience, it's probably the bulk of the time that we're waiting is actually on API calls, and they should be considerably faster. I think some of it's the serializer, and I think some of it's the fact that we could really easily put a caching layer in between the router, the Heroku router, and the API.
Yeah,
so
we could just use CloudFront.
Yeah, something. Yeah, and basically, if you requested this in the last, however long, because our data doesn't go stale very quickly, just return it from a CDN.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's kind of our endeavor into Shoebox. We have it on staging right now. We'll link to that. I'm hesitant to put it onto production until we've incorporated Ember Data Fastboot. So Yeah, I mean, look forward to that. Check it out. Let us know what you think about this, and if you have any thoughts on Fastboot, reach out to us. That would be really cool to have a discussion started. I think there's a lot of really cool stuff happening in the Fastboot space, and I've been pleasantly surprised to see that there are a lot of answers to questions that I had a few months back already. So it's really cool to see the ecosystem push everything forward.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, reach out and let us know on Twitter. And that's all we have for today's episode. Everything was Fastboot apparently. So
yeah, all Fastboot all the time, man.
Yeah, that's what's going on. So as always, you can reach out to us on Twitter if you have any questions or any feedback. We definitely like getting feedback from people. We were just this weekend, someone came up and gave us some really great feedback about training, and that was amazing. So it definitely helps us. So that's Ember Weekend, all one word, on Twitter. Or you can reach out to us individually. I'm Code for Fun on Twitter, and John's Rondale SC.
Yeah, _SC.
Is that South Carolina?
It's not. It's embarrassing. It's not.
Okay. Yeah. So so definitely reach out to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll be back. We'll be back next week with episode 80. And I think this is something that came up when we were talking at the conference this past week a few times, and people were wondering, since you're moving out to Austin, if we're going to continue doing Ember Weekend. And the answer is absolutely yes. We're going to start doing remote recordings, and I don't really foresee much change as far as the format is concerned anytime soon. So
we might actually start getting episodes out on time.
Yeah, maybe. I wouldn't. It's the naming of the episode, man. Always naming.
No promises though.
Oh man, are you naming the episode right now? Is it called No Promises?
Whatever. Yeah, always promises.
Always promises. Anyways, we'll be back next week. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, more mumbling, more banter.
Banter.
All right, we'll see you next week.